Hello, and welcome back to Who Knew? Unless you've been living under a rock, you might have heard that there's this little virus going around the planet right now. Not only that, but just before midnight on the 1st of October 2020, the US President Donald Trump tweeted that both he and the First Lady had tested positive for COVID-19. The following day, the President was transported to the Walter Reed Military Hospital for treatment. Trump joins other world leaders who've been diagnosed, including Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez, Guatemalan President Alejandro Giammattei, Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, and Prince Charles of Wales. Out of the world leaders who've contracted the virus, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson appears to have had it the worst. Back in March, he spent 3 days in an intensive care unit receiving supplemental oxygen. At times, apparently doctors were even preparing for the worst case scenario. With the President's diagnosis, you may have heard the odd thing or two about the 25th Amendment, and should things take a turn for the worst, whether or not this might come into play. Today, we're going to break down the 25th Amendment and take a look at the what, when, and how this could occur, while attempting to give some background and context too. Before getting into things, I need to preface this a little. It's important to remember that this video isn't taking a political stance, this is literally just a video about the 25th Amendment. Back to the topic though. To simplify things, the 25th Amendment, which was ratified in 1967, has 4 sections that deal with both presidential succession due to either death or their incapacitation, as well as procedures for filling the vacancy of the office of Vice President. The first section effectively covers what should happen if the president is either removed from office, resigns, or dies. In any of these situations, the vice president will become president. This section of the 25th Amendment was invoked in 1974 when Richard Nixon resigned from office and Gerald Ford succeeded him, becoming the 38th US president. The second section covers what then happens to the vacant office of vice president. Essentially, the president can nominate a candidate. This candidate will then be voted on by Congress, and if they win a majority, will take the office of vice president. Bonus fact, Gerald Ford dealt with this twice. First, when Ford was nominated by Nixon in 1973, after the former VP Spiro Agnew resigned. Then, just a year later when Ford succeeded Nixon and nominated Nelson Rockefeller to be his VP. Another bonus fact, Gerald Ford is the only person ever to have served both as vice president and president without being elected to either office. The first 2 sections seem pretty straightforward, whereas section 3 and 4 are more interesting and a more likely scenario when it comes to the president being diagnosed with or suffering from a debilitating illness. Section 3 of the 25th Amendment allows the president to voluntarily transfer authority to the vice president. This is done when the president declares in a written letter to both the presidential pro tem and Speaker of the House that he will be unable to discharge his duties. In this case, the VP assumes the power and duties of the presidency as acting president. The president remains in office, however, with no authority and are only allowed to resume their duties again once they declare in writing that they are ready to discharge their duties. In the past, this section of the 25th Amendment has been invoked 3 times by 2 presidents. All 3 cases were as a result of planned medical procedures. The first was in 1985 when former President Ronald Reagan transferred power to his VP George H.W. Bush for roughly 8 hours when he underwent colon surgery. It's said that even though he invoked Section 3 of the 25th Amendment, there wasn't actually any reference to it at the time, as Reagan was concerned over the precedent it would set and how things would look. On the other hand, President George W. Bush invoked Section 3 twice, once in 2002 and again in 2007. In both instances, this was due to a pre-planned medical colonoscopy and transferred authority to his VP, Dick Cheney. Both instances lasted no more than a few hours, and it's been said that this established the reasonableness of invoking Section 3, ensuring the continuity of the executive branch. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment addresses the case of an incapacitated president who is unable or unwilling to execute the voluntary declaration contemplated in Section 3. Think Harrison Ford in Air Force One. With regards to the 25th Amendment, this is the only section that's yet to be invoked. It's essentially a last resort, allowing the Vice President and the majority of the Cabinet to declare the President is unable to discharge their power and duties. Of course, there could be a debate over what constitutes incapacitated, and there is a procedure that allows the President to declare they are able to perform their duties. However, if the VP and Cabinet continue to believe that the President is incapacitated, regardless of or despite what the President says, the issue goes to Congress, who weigh in, ultimately deciding if the President can resume his duties or if the Vice President will continue as acting President. So how does the 25th Amendment apply to President Trump? As we've seen, There has been a precedent set for invoking Section 3 with regards to medical procedures, so it wouldn't be that unusual if Trump were to preemptively invoke this just in case his symptoms worsened or he needed to undergo a procedure that could temporarily incapacitate him. If anything, I think we could all agree that it would actually show respect for the position of presidency and its authority, ensuring that the government continues to function smoothly. However, there are two ways in which Section 4 could be invoked. The first would be if Trump were to suddenly become incapacitated and unable to invoke Section 3. This could be a likely scenario considering the severity of symptoms some individuals experience with COVID-19. There are many viruses and illnesses where symptoms seem to go from 0 to 60 in a very short period of time, especially in the case of the older generation. In this scenario, Vice President Mike Pence along with members of the cabinet would invoke Section 4 with relative ease. The second would be if the president is unwilling to voluntarily give up his power in spite of the situation, one that both Vice President Mike Pence along with the members of the cabinet feel differently about. This could be the result of several scenarios. We're not going to get into the what ifs, but one example could be that the president is given certain drugs or perhaps undergoes anesthesia. There's a chance you've experienced having a wisdom tooth out, or if you're lucky, just seen the video Daniel visits the dentist. Although the president might be feeling fine, due to medication for example, his own perception of reality might be way off. Therefore, Section 4 could be invoked. The president could later declare himself able to perform the duties of his office again. Otherwise, the VP and cabinet will continue the procedure to ensure that Mike Pence continues as acting president. So that about covers it. This video is a little shorter than our others and a bit different from what we'd usually focus on, but considering the current situation, it seemed pretty relevant. If you like this one, let us know down below by hitting those like and subscribe buttons, or even leaving a comment, and perhaps take a look at some of our other videos over here on the right. Otherwise, until next time, thanks for watching.
Nicole Pashinyan.
Pashinyan, okay.